All right, the time is 6:30 and the quorum being present, I call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, but we don't actually have the minutes for July 15th, so we will skip directly to agenda item A, which is a public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Robert Keddy, 160 Green Meadow Drive, Assessors Map 37, Lot 4. Is there anybody here for that? Could you please come up and introduce yourself for the record? Could you please introduce yourself for the record?
Robert Keddy.
And so can you just walk us through what you plan on doing with this application?
So I'm planning on building an AEU for my mother-in-law above the existing footprint that exists there right now. There's a two-car garage. I'm just going to go up above, and then where there's a shed on the back, same thing, using the same existing footprint. The only thing I am adding for life safety reasons is a secondary egress on the right side, so I have two means of in and out of the facility.
And my understanding is that you're really here, the wetland is one of those situations where it's a drainage easement, but it was built before 1996, so it's now a naturalized wetland, and it's not the typical wetland that we would go for and regulate.
Exactly.
But, all right. But it's the same square footage just going up.
Just going up, yep.
All right. I just want to find something real quick. So I'm going to read out hopefully some special conditions. So special conditions include the applicant shall install and maintain perimeter controls around the area of work to prevent the deposition. Just going to get somebody to turn that off.
Is that for me?
All right, I'm going to continue. So special conditions include the applicant shall install and maintain perimeter controls around the area of work to prevent the deposition of debris into nearby resource areas. Perimeter control shall remain in place until all areas of erodible materials have been stabilized at the site. These controls shall act as a limit of work. No equipment can be stored or work done past that point. And prior to any construction activity commencing, the following must be completed. ESCs shall be installed by the applicant or an agent of the applicant, and the conservation agent shall inspect and approve of the installed ESCs. Any issues with those? Awesome. So this is a public hearing. With that being said, before I open it up to the public, anybody on the commission have any questions or comments about this?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Seems pretty standard.
You're right.
All right, I'll open it up to the public. If anybody in the public has a question or comment, now is the time to go up to the podium and introduce yourself and ask that question. Not seeing anybody rise, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a negative determination of applicability as discussed at this meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Miles Freeman, 15 Riverview Avenue, Assessors Map 98, Lot 122. Could you please introduce yourself for the record and then explain what's happening?
Miles Freeman, representative for Craney Home Services. Our customer is looking to disconnect from their existing septic system and tie into the city connection that is in front of their house. Excuse me. The city years ago had put in the sewer main down this little dead-end street. They did a tie-in for this property into the grass with tie card shows from the DPW. So we're looking to basically extend that into the right side of the property to connect their existing plumbing in the basement to the city.
All right. Let me just. Oh. give me a second. Any questions or comments from the commission while I search around?
No questions.
Question.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a pretty simple project.
It will be a multi-day job, probably 3. Today, we actually went there and installed 50 feet of straw wattle along the perimeter of the grass area around the excavation. It will be removed while we're working because we need access, but every night when we end for the day, we will put it back, just in case it does rain overnight.
All right, yeah, I mean, I don't think this is that big of a project. It doesn't raise any big red flags to me. Anybody else on the commission?
No, I think it would be preferable to have sewerage there
Yeah.
than a septic.
All right, I'm just going to read out the special conditions again. The applicant shall install and maintain perimeter controls around the area of work to prevent the deposition of debris into nearby resource areas. Perimeter control shall remain in place till all areas of erodible materials have been stabilized at the site. These controls shall act as a limit of work. No equipment can be stored or work be done past that point. Prior to any construction activity commencing, the following must be completed. ESCs shall be installed by the applicant or an agent of the applicant, and the conservation agent shall inspect and approve the installed ESCs. I am now realizing, is this the one, you may have already talked about this, the actual limit of work is really tight, right? It's, you basically.
There's woods to the right of us, the house is on the left, so the restriction is like when you excavate, where you're gonna put the excavated material.
Yeah.
So it will stay on site, which is why we put the straw wattle around the property, so if it does rain, it's catching that. And then the wetlands is quite a bit further down the dead-end street.
All right.
So there's also plenty of vegetation and grass to help with any rain out.
All right, perfect.
Yep, and Dan, the place that we'd be most concerned about having the erosion controls installed is right against the roadway. So it doesn't make sense to have them up during the day, while they're working. So I would recommend, just maybe mentioning in the special conditions that those erosion controls at that point should be installed overnight for however many days it's.
Yeah, I agree with that. That should be part of the special conditions. So with that being said, I will open it up to the public. If anybody in the public would like to make a comment, now is the time to do so. But not seeing anybody rise, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a negative determination of applicability as discussed at this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Isaac Reyes, 36 Shady Lane, Assessors Map 99, Lot 78. Is there anybody here for that? Could you please just come up and
We have the volume turned up, we can't hear here at all.
we're pretty limited. I'm trying to speak directly into the microphone. I ask that my fellow commission members also speak directly into the microphone. If you can pull the microphone up a little bit further, but we are limited by, the sound system in here. With that said, could you please introduce yourself for the record and then explain what you plan on doing?
Good evening. My name is Isaac Reyes, and what we're planning to do is when we first purchased our home back in 2018, we had a current fence on the backyard where we also had a swimming pool, in-ground swimming pool there that one of the things that the building department told us is that we either had to backfill it or fix it, and we didn't have the funds to fix it. So we decided to go ahead back then and backfill it. But since then, we really weren't able to have a backyard for my kids and all that. And what we get into the point right now is that the fence that has been there since they built the house back in 1938, it needs to be addressed, and that's why I came to get the permit from you guys to be able to build like a 2-foot wall and do the fence that is there, obviously a new fence with a chain link fence right up against the same perimeter of the area that is being there.
All right.
I also
so-
brought a picture that I met
Yeah.
Sam there to show kind of what it looks like now and what it will look like, what I have in mind.
Yeah, so I guess my concern or my issue with this is that like the current fence that's there right now, I mean, the rest of the commission can weigh in on this. It's definitely in need of repair.
Yeah.
And we're not typically, trying to stand in the way of people repairing their fences and stuff. But the rendering that you've provided, I don't know if we have a mechanism to approve something like that. One of the requirements of a fence in Tewksbury within the jurisdictional zone is that it can't hamper the travel of wildlife. A chain link fence might hamper some, but like not all. But with the 2 feet of cinder block that is shown,
Yeah.
that I just don't see how we could approve that under an RDA.
The reason why I wanted to put that little retaining wall there too, because as you see the pictures that Sam took, it like kind of goes down that way like that, and I want to be able to even up the yard without technically showing what we could do with AI there to show you guys what I'm aiming to do. It's, it doesn't have to be 2 feet. We can make it even smaller. And it's okay, but I do need to have some sort of a wall, not just a chain link fence, so that the yard can be backfilled the way it has to be.
So I guess I get what you're saying, but that's now kind of that it makes it sound like you're trying to build a retaining wall. And I'm not comfortable approving a retaining wall that like isn't actually structured as a retaining wall and trying to be a fence at the same time. Do you see what you're trying to put backfill in, but like a retaining wall is built to certain specifications and, requirements. So I'm just worried that even though it's not a ton of fill, it could end up pushing that entire thing over further into the wetland.
Understand. And again, I just showed that picture as without technicalities. It was just more like what I think that it should look like. But if it would be, a 2 feet retaining wall, I'm obviously willing to use whatever is necessary to do it correctly. And I'm not trying to cut corners. I just wanted to do it right. And that's the only way for me to, and again, it doesn't have to be 2 feet. It can be like a foot, as long as I can even that up so it doesn't restrain. So in other words, if you're really thinking about the land itself, right, if it's coming down here, if I even this up and the fence is right up at the edge, I'm cool with that. It doesn't have to be a wall. As long as that part of the little retaining wall to even up the land itself, which is really not much, is about a foot, I will say, for what you saw as well. So it's not that I'm looking to build a big wall, but yeah, something that it will serve as retaining. If you know the actual facts of the way I should build it, I'm more than happy to do it the right way.
So, looking at the one big thing is that we can't prescribe what you need to do. You need to come to us with plans that we approve and we can review. So I don't want to get too far into it has to be this height or, I'm just trying to show based on what you're describing. I get what you want to do. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but you're also, it does seem like you're describing a retaining wall, and the retaining wall would be above the slope, where it's already starting to slope really far down, really steep down into it. That's where I'm kind of concerned, is just putting this fence with a small wall and then backfilling is just going to, if not done properly, is just going to collapse it into the wetlands.
Correct, and then believe me, I wouldn't want to do that either, I want to do something that is done properly, so we avoid any further situations like that. So, I mean, what would be my next step then to do it?
I think my recommendation for next steps, and, if anybody wants to jump in and if they have anything else, because this is bordering on, I think it's leaning towards more like it should be a full NOI in which we would have, notice of intent, just a slightly larger project essentially. And we would have, a more, a more detailed, maybe engineering plan about how the wall is supposed to be built. So it doesn't collapse or it doesn't, as long as you maintain it, won't collapse into the wetlands.
So in other words, I gotta get like a structural engineer to tell.
Yeah, that's where I would be leaning
how to
towards.
build the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get that done, definitely.
Yeah. So I guess, as it stands right now, you've applied for an RDA, a request for a determination of applicability. Because you've already done that, I would rather we continue this meeting and you can submit the paperwork for an NOI and fill in the further details about what would be required to build this wall.
All right.
I don't want to give a positive determination if we can help it. Like, it's just a small, you can come back and retool the application instead of us, even though it's a positive determination, it's us denying you and
Exactly.
forcing you to do the other way. So I would rather just continue it and you can come back with a new one if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep.
If I could butt in, I think if it was something where you were looking mostly to just replace the existing fence, where it is without the retaining wall, I think that the commission could reasonably approve that through this process today or at the next meeting. Most likely, as well as you mentioned, like there was on the other side of the property where the garage is, that small retaining wall that's sort of it was wooden and it's not functional anymore.
Yep.
I think that might also be able to, be repaired as, there's currently no wall there really, and it's, so I think if that's the scope that you're looking to do, I think that might recommend the commission, issue a negative determination for that scope, but it is really just the retaining wall right on the river, as well as sort of creating a pad for that shed so you can move it, because you'd have to put quite a bit of fill, right there as well. So those are the two main things I think.
So
that
I
are
guess on
elevating.
top of that, so if we were to do a negative determination, for just the fence, replacing the fence, you would have 3 years, that the permit would be active, that you could do that. And I don't know, maybe that's worth it to replace that fence and then come back whenever you feel comfortable, so you'd be able to do some work, maybe just some repairs or something like that, if that's, how you would prefer to do it.
I honestly, I would think if it's us getting a structural engineer to draw the wall and all that,
Yeah.
and then show you tell me what we need to build and bring it to you guys, I would rather do it that way, because again, eventually, my kids have been there like almost 10 years with a backyard. I don't want it to go as far anymore. And in order for me to fix it correctly, I do have to build that little wall to even out the thing and then have the fence up the way it should be.
Yeah.
Do it correctly.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess the next question is, I don't know how long that's going to take. So we're supposed to be, when we make a continuation, we're supposed to set it for a specific time in the future, not just like whenever you feel like it.
No.
But I want to give you the option that you don't have to come back for the next meeting. So I don't know, is there, realistically, how long do you think it would take for you to come back? Is it next meeting? Is it in 3 meetings? Do you want
When is
to?
next meeting?
Next meeting is,
September 2nd.
yeah, September 2nd, so it's pretty soon.
That would be it.
You want to come back?
Yeah,
for
I
that?
want
All
to.
right.
I want to get it done
Yeah.
correctly, like I'm telling you.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I got to get the architect there to do their drawings and.
Yeah, and if it's not ready by September 2nd, just let Sam know and we can continue
And we
it
can-
that way. You
yeah.
don't have to show up just to say.
No, that's
I'm
fine.
gonna
I
continue
appreciate
and stuff.
that. But we'll go that way.
All right, thank you.
Question, once I have that ready, do I just submit it to you guys prior to the meeting so you
Yeah.
have it? And then in the meeting, I'll just come back again, the same way
Yeah.
we did now?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask Dan. It sounds like maybe we were discussing that a notice of intent might be required, in which case that would have to be like the same way that you applied online to do this RDA on the OpenGov, you'd have to do that for this. Is that what you're recommending, or is it just?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I have to pay another fee and do another application, is that what it is?
That's what I was hoping he would have to, he could avoid paying the initial fee, but there's mailing requirements that, for an NOI that aren't applicable for a
Yeah,
RDA.
yeah.
So I,
We can talk a little bit more about the filing fees and lay it out for you and see, maybe just recommend a continuance to the next meeting and can sort of flesh out those details, what it would look like.
Okay.
So you have an idea of how much time it's going to take.
All right, cool.
all right. All right, with that said, I'm going to request a motion to continue this RDA as discussed at this meeting to the next meeting on September 2nd, 2026. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Linda and Salvatore Poli, 51 Joanne Drive, Assessors Map 56, Lot 226. Is there anybody here for that? Could you introduce yourself for the record, and then the floor is yours.
I'm Salvatore Poli.
Linda Poli.
Thank you.
Our plan is to replace the existing driveway and extend it another 10 feet away from the conservation land, more towards the house.
All right. And the images, so it's 10 feet, expanding it just on the entire side of the driveway?
Yes.
All right. Any questions or comments from the commission?
I have no questions.
Land is flat.
Yeah, land is flat, it's a lawn. I would recommend there's a good spot for an erosion control where you have that footpath that goes right down to the wetland or the conservation land.
Yeah.
So that seems like a natural spot to put, silt fence or straw wattle to, just while they're, pulling up the pavement, any runoff, would be collected there.
Okay.
So I think it makes sense to require, an erosion control.
Yeah, all right.
Is that something I would do or the contractor?
Erosion controls?
Yeah.
It's really up to you, I guess, if the contractor, does stuff like that. I don't see.
Okay.
I was going to read out some special conditions saying that before work commences, you or an agent of yours would put it in, and then our agent would approve of it. And you have I would recommend just the straw wattles, unless anybody thinks that it should be like the silt fence. I think, do whatever you want, but at least one of them. But I think straw wattles is enough for a project of this scope and size and stuff.
All right.
All right, I'm going to read out those special conditions now. Conditions include the applicant shall install and maintain perimeter controls around the area of work to prevent the deposition of debris into nearby resource areas. Perimeter controls shall shall remain in place until all areas of erodible materials have been stabilized at the site. These controls shall act as a limit of work. No equipment can be stored and work done past that point. Prior to any construction activity commencing, the following must be completed. ESCs shall be installed by the applicant or an agent of the applicant, and the conservation agent shall inspect and approve of the installed ESCs. So
Okay.
literally what I we were just talking about. All right, with that, if there's no questions or comments from the commission, I will entertain actually, I will open it up to the public, if there's anybody in the public who would like to comment. Now is the time to do so. Not seeing anybody rise, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a motion for a negative determination of applicability as discussed at this meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are at agenda item E, public hearing, request for determination of applicability for Jonathan Martin's 160 Country Road, Assessors Map 106, Lot 35. Is there anybody here for that? Could you introduce yourself for the record, and then the floor is yours to walk us through this project?
James O'Hare. Our plan is to replace our driveway.
What's the state of the driveway right now, and what do you plan on, how are you changing it? Is it just a one-for-one
Yes.
repaving?
Yes.
All right.
Well, part of it, where there were trees that had split and removed, they're sinking the driveway.
All right.
So the lower part of the driveway, we're going to move out 4 feet, so it's in line with the driveway going up to
All
the
right.
street.
So there's a small increase of 4 feet at the back.
Yeah, and then it sort of tapers to like a triangular piece.
All right.
Pretty small square footage, I think.
But you have that, is this the one that that drainage pipe that comes out and?
That's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. But yeah, that looks pretty dry. You said it doesn't, it's not an active, like it's
No.
dry most of the time.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a, stream that is just not active right now. It barely looks like anything. All right, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. Does anybody on the commission have any questions or comments?
Straightforward.
No questions.
I'm just going to read out the special conditions again. Conditions include the applicant shall install and maintain perimeter controls around the area of work to prevent the deposition of debris into nearby resource areas. Perimeter controls shall remain in place until all areas of erodible material have been stabilized at the site. These controls shall act as a limit of work. No equipment can be stored or work done past that point. Prior to any construction activity commencing, the following must be completed. ESCs shall be installed by the applicant or an agent of the applicant, and the conservation agent shall inspect and approve of the installed ESCs. Are we okay with all of that?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, with that said, this is a public hearing. I will open it up to the public. If anybody would like to make a comment, now is the time to do so. Not seeing anybody rise, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a motion for a negative determination of applicability as discussed at this meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where are we? Agenda item F. Agenda item F is a public hearing, request for determination of applicability from Crystal Nugent, 72 North Billerica Road, Assessors Map 4, Lot 67. This is a continuation from the last meeting. Could you just come up and introduce yourselves for the record?
Hi, my name is Crystal Nguyen. I'm here with Alan Trans, my brother-in-law. He's one of the homeowners as well, so he's going to do the speech today. We have.
Could I just have you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Alan Tran.
Perfect. All right, so you've updated the sketch
Yes.
that you're providing. Right away, I'm just going to say I may have led you a little bit astray. When I requested last meeting to put like whatever sheds and stuff you want, I failed to mention that, so the bylaw is written that under or 120 square feet and below is automatically, approved, like, you got a waiver for that. So 12 by 16 is a little bit bigger than that. If you want to change it to 120 square feet, you have that by right. We can't say no to that. I don't have an issue with the slightly smaller shed in this area. I just want to bring it up. Technically it would be under a waiver and stuff, but it's only slightly larger. If possible, if we're going to go slightly larger, I'd rather it further away from the wetlands.
Okay.
If that's okay with you and everybody else.
We can move it down to the middle of the backyard, right behind the pergola.
All right.
We can do that.
All right. Anybody not seeing any opposition to that? And then the pergola, I just want to make sure that's like, that's going to be open. It's not an actual roof or anything.
Oh, no, not actual roof.
But the ground, as long as it's not a patio and you're actually making like pervious surfaces on it, if you can maintain either yard or, pebbles, crushed stone, rock, or something like that, I don't have any issues with that. It's just like if you're pouring concrete, and making an actual patio, that's also, that'd be a little bit more difficult to approve.
We are planning to put like something like a 2 by 2 foot stone on top.
All right, so.
Yeah, and then on the bottom, just ground and rock, and then just stone on top, that's it.
All right. But yeah, nothing will be sealed. Water will have the ability to run through the cracks.
Underneath, yeah.
All right, then I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, so by stone under the pergola, you mean like gravel?
Yeah, gravel,
Yeah,
sorry.
gravel,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
All right.
So are we staying at these sizes?
I think as long as the 12 by 16 pergola is some sort of stone and not like,
Completely impervious?
Yeah, concrete or, laid down and stuff like that. I don't think we have much that we can say about that. And again, the 12 by 16 shed, a little bit bigger than what we would like to see, but I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. And if it's moved over a little bit, I'm happy with it. But you can also reduce it in size to 120, square feet and put it wherever you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you wanted the current location, then a 12 by 10 shed or something might fit there, just to meet that 120 square foot threshold. But otherwise, I think if it's moved further from the wetlands, then I think it can.
Yeah, we're definitely going to move further.
Commission could approve a little bit larger.
And then the driveway, you have the actual, footage and dimensions there and stuff. So I really appreciate that. It is getting very close. The one thing that I will say is that we discussed this at the last meeting. If this house had been, if this driveway had been proposed when the house was being built, I think we would have had a bigger issue with it. And I thought that in the original order of conditions, it said that you were supposed to be provided with the wetland delineation and the maps and stuff. So it was surprising that you didn't know about it already. So I'm just, I want to bring that up because you should have been provided that information and have been aware of where the lines are and stuff. But with that being said, you've done what I've asked, you've put the dimensions on there and stuff. So, again, it's very close to the wetlands. I don't want to step in your way of being able to park safely off, the road. That's I've driven by that, your house. It's
Yes,
it's a high traffic area and
It is
stuff.
a high traffic area.
Yeah. But with that said, I'll open it up to the rest of the commission if there's any questions or comments.
I was just looking up Sam's recommendations on this.
Yeah, I think my recommendations are a little different, but I think it could be approved in this manner with the reduction in the shed, just to make sure that's compliant with the bylaw. Or moving the shed, I should also say, outside of the no-build zone.
So I guess before I open it up to the public, is there any other things we would like to see happen, or are we okay with the way?
We're only 9 feet,
Yeah,
so we've got to find something to slow that runoff down.
You're talking about from the driveway, or?
Say again?
Are you talking about from the driveway?
Driveway, yeah.
Yeah, I think there could be scope for some sort of like crushed stone drip strip or something right around the edge of that.
We did the same over at the big parking lot there. You need something to decelerate that runoff. That's a big driveway.
so I guess if the current dimensions, it says it's 9 feet from the no disturb zone.
Yep.
So I guess the way I see it, there's two options. We can either ask that like a 1 foot wide strip of like crushed stone to prevent the runoff from creating channels directly into the wetlands is either placed on one side of the driveway of where it currently is, or that can be 1 foot of the driveway. So I would see it as, the 27 feet would be 26 feet with a, 1 foot wide, the 20 feet would be 19, or we could just permit it on the other side, so it would kind of be 28 feet and 21 feet.
We could move it back 1 feet.
I like reducing it.
You're like, all right, so
that's
keep the current
total-
dimensions, but with the 1 foot strip.
1 foot of a decent size aggregate that won't clog easily. I don't know how we would dictate that.
I mean, I think just discussing it at this meeting, I think it's pretty clear what we would like to see, and it will be written up in, the final permit and stuff, so we can all, we're all agreeing on it right now. We'll just have the actual, Sam, fill in the details before you can actually start working on the project and stuff. If that's, okay.
I like that.
All right. So, with that being said, if there's no further discussion from the commission, I'm going to just read out the special conditions. Conditions include: the applicant shall install and maintain perimeter controls around the area of work to prevent the deposition of debris into nearby resource areas. Perimeter controls shall remain in place until all areas of erodible materials have been stabilized at the site. These controls shall act as a limit of work. No equipment can be stored or work done past that point. Prior to any construction activity commencing, the following must be completed: ESCs shall be installed by the applicant or an agent of the applicant, and the conservation agent shall inspect and approve of the installed ESCs. And excuse me for my mumbling, I'm going to say one of the other special conditions is on the new sketch 8.5.2026.pdf, the driveway expansion dimensions will include a 1-foot strip of crushed stone or aggregate around the perimeter within that scope. If that's.
To be inclusive in the
Yeah, to be
total square
inclusive
footage,
in
yeah.
the square footage.
Yeah.
All right. If that's okay with you guys, all right. I will open it up to the public. If there's anybody in the public who would like to make a comment, now is the time to do so. Not seeing anybody rise, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And could I have a motion for a negative determination of applicability as discussed at this meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, and then we have agenda item G is a request for certificate of compliance for Elizabeth Ronayne, 35 Settlers Way, DEP file number 305-1123. Is there anybody here for that? And so this one, can you please introduce yourselves for the record and the
I'm
floor?
Elizabeth Ronayne from 35 Settlers Way, and this is my son, John Michael.
I'm John Michael Ronayne.
Thank you. All right, so my understanding of this one is you've done all the work, but the project was never closed out, and now you're trying to sell your house and move, so you're trying to get this all buttoned
We
up.
installed it in 2021 during COVID, so I think there was maybe just that tail end.
Yeah.
There was a miscommunication, didn't get the as-built.
All right. But the as-built, you built what you proposed to build and stuff.
Yeah, we had the surveyor come back and he certificated the original survey to confirm that it matched the original approved plan,
Perfect.
and the building department signed off.
All right. Yeah, and I think in the recommendation letter, there's some questions about the extension for COVID stuff and how long you have to close out. I won't go into too much detail about that. It's just, let's try to get this closed out so you guys can sign all your paperwork. Any questions or comments from the commission? Seems pretty straightforward.
No questions.
All right. So if there's no further questions, I will I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for a certificate of compliance for Elizabeth Ronayne, 35 Settlers Way, DP file number 305-1123. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Just have a quick question. So we have movers coming at 8 a.m. And is it possible to get a copy of the signed certificate that will get filed? My attorney will have to file it, I guess, at the Registry of Deeds tomorrow.
So we can probably, typically when we take a motion, after the meeting, we sign, the certificate. So it's kind of up to our
Could you expedite that, Sam?
Yes, yeah, I have it prepared for everyone's signature after the meeting and scan it in first thing.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, so.
Didn't want to sleep in a tent tomorrow.
Do I have a motion to approve this certificate of compliance?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thank you very much.
We have another, this is a request for a certificate of compliance for Michael and Devin Whitehouse, 40 Donovan Way, DEP number, file number 305-1209. Is there anybody here for that?
Hello, my name is Troy Stearns. I'm with Civil Design Consultants. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Jack Whitehouse. Here today to request a certificate of compliance for completed work at 40 Donovan Way, formerly known as 45 Pine Street. It's in the R40 zoning district. An order of conditions was issued in February 2025 for the construction of a single-family residence, including a deck, driveway, and other amenities. I believe the work was constructed in substantial compliance with the order of conditions and in accordance with the approved plans and special conditions. This included the installation, maintenance of the required wetland area signs, and use of erosion and sedimentation controls. That was the straw wattles and silt fences. As part of our review of the finished site, we did identify some minor deviations from the approved plans. The building footprint is slightly larger than what was shown in the approved plans, and the driveway is also slightly different configuration on that. However, the driveway was constructed further away from the wetlands, and there was a turnaround shown on the plans that was not constructed either. Overall, completed work results in less encroachment towards the wetland resource area. Based on a review, we believe these are minor deviations. They don't adversely affect any resource areas, and project remains in substantial compliance. So with that, could answer any questions.
So, I mean, the 37 square feet, it's, you know, it's an increase, but it's not a huge one. And the 65 square feet of the building footprint, I guess it's also a pretty small increase. I get, my biggest concern is that it's, you know, not our jurisdictional area per se, but I just, like, the building department, you know, probably also approved it, and then you're building a larger structure than what was, you know, approved. So I just want to bring that to the attention. I'm not sure how our building department, you know, handled that and stuff, but that's, you know, a small red flag for me, besides just the, you know, increase by 65 square feet. The areas of the driveway was constructed a little bit further out than what was originally proposed, or further away from the wetlands?
Correct, yeah, so wetlands are over here. The proposed edge of the driveway was right here, and also had a 10-foot bump out on it. So they didn't construct that bump out at all, and it was constructed 4 feet further away from that proposed.
All right.
Yeah.
And what's this? Oh.
I was just going to mention, my understanding was that the bump out was supposed to be sort of a turnaround space. So I just basically recommend the commission keep in mind, you know, the increase in impervious area, you know, if the applicant does come forward with another request in the future.
Yeah, I guess my question about the bump out is what the square footage of that would have been, and what is it? I mean, it's not there, so what's the difference, I guess?
Bump out was a 10 by 10.
10 by, all right.
So Sam, you're saying they might come back in the future and ask to put in that bump out? Is that what your concern is?
I guess it's not a concern, but I just see, you know, I think it was supposed to be a turnaround, so a space to turn around car, and I imagine that they might have interest in that in the future. So that's just something to be aware of. I don't think that the increase is necessarily, you know, the increase in impervious area is necessarily concerning. But I could imagine it might be a future filing.
Thank you.
If it's a future filing, like that, it's just that, they'd have to.
You consider it at that time.
Yeah. So as long as they're aware that they don't have the right to just rebuild it, even though it was previously approved for closing it out, any changes would have to come back to us and stuff, so.
Yes, I have a question. Was the increased house size on the actual building permit, was that amended?
Not sure about that.
That's a no-no.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that it's like, you know, I don't think we can hold this up based on building permit issues. It's not our jurisdiction.
It's on our plan.
Yeah, it's on our plan.
So if it deviates from our plan, it needs to be amended, in my opinion, to reflect what is built.
So what are you requesting, or?
I would like to see a amended as-built versus what they proposed. I mean, we're already significantly over an impervious surface, and I realize it's away, but now you're saying the house is bigger. I mean, where does it stop? This is another classic example here. That's my feeling.
So I just want to make sure I'm looking at the.
How much bigger was the house?
65.
Huh?
How you doing? Jim Hanley, Civil Design. Do we know how big the house was that was designed and what the increase was?
I think it was 1650. 65 square feet is the increase.
Is the increase over 1650? Was that the footprint?
So 34.
1634, so it's like 4% bigger, so you're right, I get it, right?
I think we've been down this road before, haven't we? I just would like to see the plans match what's built.
Yeah, and we...
Signing a contract.
No, I get it. I think the only thing I'd put out there for the commission to consider is that we do a survey, we get a footprint from a builder, and then they move that through the process. It's not uncommon that there's slight adjustments. Sometimes they're a little bit smaller, not right. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger. This is 4% bigger. We had an internal debate inside the office whether or not this was even worth bringing to the commission's attention because this standard is substantial compliance. You know, we decided, to be as conservative as possible and put it in front of you, but it's 4%.
Which we appreciate. It's just, it just seems like this is just the...
So I guess my issue is like, I'm not an expert in reading, the site plans, the as-built and stuff. Like I can follow it along, but I couldn't construct this myself. So you're right, 4% is very small. By coming back and updating the plans to show that increase, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to notice the difference if it was laid out on top of each other. So like, it is an increase. It's not a huge increase, as we've been saying. Is there any wiggle room, like, they've mentioned the bump out in the driveway, they'd have to come back, that's, 10 by 10 extra, pavement that would go within this area, or actually, it would go within the 100-foot buffer zone. So could we add a stipulation that any future driveway expansion would have to come with a 1-for-1 increase in the 100-foot buffer zone, so it'd be pushed back for future?
We could just take that on its own merit. I mean, I just believe when we sign off on this, it should match, or relatively close. I mean, I don't know how my fellow commission members feel.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think like Sam said, when they come back in the future for this 10-foot bump out, we're not going to remember, what was going on.
If it's still us.
So if it's even still us, so that's why it's important to have accurate plans on file.
I'm not sure I understand it. So we did do an as-built that shows you what's been built out there, right? So the plan...
It's accurate?
Yeah, there is an as-built, it's just, there is some discrepancies with, I guess, the plan that would have been recorded with the order of conditions. So I think that's what Steve's speaking about. So we do have, the as-built plan is in the meeting materials, and it just has those two, differences there.
I mean, we've all discussed this numerous times, is we like, when we issue these things, it's a contract, and it's got to meet the contract. If not, Mr. Hanley's aware, we'd like you to come back and say, hey, we're going to make it a little bit bigger, and we go, okay, Thank you.
So,
But please appreciate that this happens without us,
And we-
right? So we give the builders the approved plans, and they'll work to pick a floor plan that works, and it's close, and,
And
but we're
we
not
understand
involved.
that. It's not a perfect business.
Yeah, I get it.
And we
Right.
get that. It's just that when we do this, maybe this is something to educate the people pulling the permits.
I guess we've done, I think, to, speak about other projects, they've entered that contract with the town saying, we're going to build one thing, and then they build something totally different. I think we've done a very good job of preventing, of getting it known that we don't want that to happen anymore. I think if our goal is to have every single as-built be perfect in every way without any minor modifications to it, I think that's a losing battle. I don't think we're gonna, do that. And this 65 square feet of a house increasing in size, the 37 feet of the, of the pavement, to me, that's within that, that's the type of deviations I was expecting to see when we started, getting on people's cases. There's all of a sudden a 5-foot retaining wall that wasn't permitted. There's, the driveway is double the size. I think, again, we've done a very good job of preventing that and getting it known that we expect that type of stuff to come to us. So if it was up to me, I don't see this as being that big of a deal. I don't know what you're asking for going forward of, the request is a certificate of compliance. They've largely complied.
I think largely comply, I agree, but this is just something we need to keep bringing up. Let's try to match it. This isn't rocket science.
Yeah.
I agree with Dan. It's only 4%, so.
Because I would prefer, I think the middle ground, I agree with you, Linda, that we say we want to see an increase, any future driveway expansion, or we could say it in such a way that any expansion into the wetlands requires a replication area, something like that. How are we going to keep track of that? By being a good commission, that's the way we handle it. We have Sam, it's going to largely fall on Sam to research the order of conditions, in this type of stuff. Besides that, I don't know if there's a great way of handling
Well, we
it.
need to encourage people to just come back and say, hey,
Yeah.
want to change it. And that's not a whole lot of, and that can be on a hand-drawn plan.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna grow 2 feet here. Okay, cool. I'm just, it's my pet peeve lately.
So I guess I will entertain a motion to approve the request for a certificate of compliance with that stipulation that any future project expanding into the buffer zones, into the 100-foot buffer zone, would have to have a replication of size. I'll entertain that motion right now. If it gets voted down, we can figure out an alternative. But do I have
That's reasonable.
All right, do I have a motion to that effect?
Make a motion.
Just
Go
to
ahead.
confirm, Dan, you're looking for a wetland replication, so a creation of a wetland
Yes.
extension of the buffer zone?
Yeah. All right, we have the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And all those in favor, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What do we have now? We have, this is a public hearing, a notice of intent for Nicole Smallridge, 21 Virginia Road, Assessors Map 58, Lot 164, DEP file number 305-1230. Is there anybody here for that?
We've received continuance requests for this hearing and the next, Dan.
To the next meeting?
Yes, to the next meeting and for the next hearing as well. a continuance request to the next meeting.
All right.
I think she said the September 16th meeting?
September 16th. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so could I have a motion to continue this public hearing, notice of intent, DEP file number 305-1230 to the meeting on September 16th, 2026?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. This public hearing, notice of intent and land disturbance permit for Marburg 1777 LLC, 1777 Main Street, Assessors Map 85, Lot 1, DEP file number 305-1233. This is also being continued?
Yeah, this is being continued. I would recommend the continuance to the next meeting on September 2nd.
Meeting. All right. Could I have a motion to that effect to continue this to the next meeting on September 2nd?
I'll make the motion to continue to September 2nd.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right, and then we have a few emergency certifications. Agenda item K, emergency certification for Matthew and Grace Poirier, 15 Woodside Terrace. Is this a tree or is this can you fill us in on the detail?
Yeah, sure. This was a tree that had fallen up against a residence and was inspected by the former acting agent and deemed to be an emergency, right up against the house. So she issued that emergency certification independently, and I'd recommend the commission move to ratify that. Tree was within the buffer zone, and its removal was necessary.
Yeah, those pictures are pretty scary.
Yeah, they just got away with it by the skin of their teeth there. So
I feel like we've been pretty skeptical of trees falling or people saying, oh, we have a dead and dying tree and we want to cut down 20 of them. And it's like, well, that's a little bit outrageous, but this is clearly one of those times that it did narrowly miss the house and scraped up against it. So
It's a tree.
yeah. All right, so with that being said, if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to ratify the emergency cert.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. This one, agenda item L, emergency certification for Sandra Dukeshire, 375 Kendall Road. Can you fill us in on the details?
Yep, this one was basically a failed Title V. So septic tie-in was ordered by the Department of Health. Went out there, took a look at the site. It's right on the Shawshene and, Meadowbrook. So it's right on the stream, and so there is a good place for erosion controls on the other side of the driveway. So that was really, I think, the major stipulation that I had recommended there, as well as maybe reseeding any disturbed area. But recommend the commission move to ratify that emergency cert.
All right. Yep, don't want to stand in the way of sewer tie-ins. If there's no discussion on this, I'll entertain a motion to ratify the emergency certification.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right. Now, agenda item M. Mr. Sheehan, you are recusing yourself once again
Yes,
from
I am.
this. All right. I'll just give it a moment.
See you, Dennis.
All right. Before I open this back up, we actually have a smaller crowd than normal here. I will say, Once again, when it comes to the public comment period, I'm going to limit everybody to 3 minutes. I will do my best to keep track of the 3 minutes and give you a 30-second warning when you should be wrapping up. I've not been very strict about that, but I'm going to try to push you in the direction of, concise comments about the wetlands. And again, I'll remind everybody, this is a meeting about the wetlands. We are here to talk about the wetlands and how this project affects the wetlands. I keep on saying wetlands because it's not about anything else besides the wetlands. In the past, I hate to say this, but we've had some people say borderline nasty things about various people, and I'm not going to tolerate that at this meeting. So, with that being said, I will open it up. This is a public hearing, notice of intent and land disturbance permit for Tyler Ryan, 73 to 75 Hillman Street, Assessors Map 35, Lot 6, DEP file number 305-1232. Could you please introduce yourselves to the record, and then you can provide us with any updates.
Sure. I'm Tyler Ryan with East Point Energy.
Frank Holmes with Langen Engineering. Greg Hockmitz with Epsilon Associates.
Thank you. I know there's 3 of you and there's only 2 microphones. I would appreciate you speak directly into the microphones and really orate.
Sure. So we don't have any sort of presentation. I know we received a couple comments earlier today from the new conservation agent. So we'd be happy to talk through any of those if you have questions outstanding for us. But I believe we submitted our last comments back to TEC on Wednesday and to you all.
All right. So, Sam, you were able to go out and actually perform a site walk and everything. So I guess I'll open it up to you if you want to speak on what you saw and any concerns that you have that you'd like to bring up.
Yeah, sure. So I did go out today for about 45 minutes to an hour with Pete Engel, who was the peer reviewer from TEC. So we walked the site, basically talked about some of the outstanding or some of the comments that I had noted in his peer review. I believe, the major sort of potentially outstanding one at this point is the stormwater conveyance from basically the front of the property, the front of the properties. It seems like Pete was not satisfied that the stormwater, basically Pete thinks that the stormwater is still going to go right into the roadway from just basically the front portion of the property, right into Hillman Roadway. So Pete recommended, maybe extension of curbing in that area just to direct the flow to an appropriate location. Maybe a vegetated swale along sort of the edge of the property boundary. I know that there's the right-of-way from Hillman Street, but something basically just to deal with that water coming off the site. And I believe you had mentioned maybe that thought that the stormwater, you made those adjustments to the plan. So I guess appreciate some discussion there. As based on the revised plans, it still seemed like an outstanding thing from TEC's side.
So, and could I just, I guess to clarify, I thought you were proposing that the front of the property was such a small amount that the goal was to just put the stormwater out onto the street because it's just going to sheet flow there, but it's a small amount. Am I not understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so I think that's somewhat correct, but it was just limited to the driveway apron, essentially, from the edge of Hillman Road up to the site itself, like to the fence where you like enter the site, right? So that was draining down into the roadway, but I think what the comment was is maybe part of the site itself. And in the latest revised drawings, we had added some spot grades to essentially create a gutter along that line, like the fence line, the sound wall line, to direct the water to the catch basins. Happy to have discussion with the peer review consultant just to clarify that, but that is the intent. We would not want water from the site going out into the street, just the driveway apron itself.
So other comments were basically just related to, I think, the work proposed around the potential vernal pool. So did try to get out there to take a look at the vernal pool, and it was very difficult to do so. It's very built up right to the edge, and there's also chain link fence around the entire, as far as I could walk around. So I had a few recommendations / ideas if the applicants would be willing about ways to make that that area a little bit more suitable for wildlife, to protect wildlife benefits. So removal of that chain link fence would be one of them to allow wildlife access. And I think one of the peer review comments was had to do with the suitability of the meadow seed mixture for that location. I'm not necessarily an expert on that, but I think that there might be recommendations there for, maybe some shrubs along the top, and then closer to the actual vernal pool, maybe more of a wet mix. Just from my assessments, I'm certainly will defer, but that might be suitable for that area. I think the only other comment was about the proposal for snow melt. I think, my recommendation to the commission, my preference would be to have a condition that any snow melt that needs to be transported off-site to a DEP-approved snow melt location, or, snow piling location. So I think just to limit any issues with sheet flow on the site, that might be beneficial. But those were, my major discussions with Pete, and, major things that not major, but just things that I clued in on that I think could either be adjusted in the plan or, be made conditions of an order.
Sure. Yeah, I think in terms of the potential vernal pool, we have no issues with any sort of additional plantings that would be required. The goal with coming here was, what we're asking to do in the encroachment areas is to remove the things that are encroaching right now to try to return that to, some sort of suitable habitat for wildlife. And so kind of whatever you and the commission think is needed there, I'm certainly happy to do that. And then I don't think we have any sort of issue with the snow removal pieces as well.
Okay, yeah, I did forget to mention there was also a piece of metal that was sort of embedded in the potential vernal pool. It seemed like just, like refuse from whatever operations are going on the site. So I might also recommend, if willing, to remove that while you have equipment there from that pond. There's a piece of really large, sort of rusted out metal that's in the pool and not necessarily providing habitat value. So if that would be something that willing to do, that would also be, I think, in the commission's, I would recommend as a benefit to wildlife protection.
So I guess based on previous discussions, you were saying that it's listed as a potential vernal pool, but you didn't feel it fit the exact definition of a vernal pool. By making these improvements, how likely is it to become an actual vernal pool?
Yeah, so I think one piece to that is that it is not seasonally wet. It's almost, I've been coming out to the site for 2.5 years now, and it's always been filled with water. So I think also, given some of the high groundwater elevations that we've been discussing here as well, I think the thought is that it's actually just groundwater there, but I'll certainly.
Yeah, and in full disclosure, Sam's got some good ideas here. I actually went to the site before the hearing tonight just because I wanted to take another look, and I think a lot of these are great ideas. I do want to report back that a good chunk of the fence is gone on the backside, but certainly removing the rest of it makes sense. Getting the metal out of there absolutely makes sense. So the seed mix we spec'd, we've had really good luck with that. It's an Ernst Upland Wildlife forage mix, which we've had really good luck with in sites like this. The wet mix is good, it's just really slow to germinate, and I think this sandy nature of the soils in the upland areas may be too dry for the wet mix, so I do think we've got the right seed mix. You had a comment about trying to get rid of the invasive species, mainly the Phragmites that's out there. That would be great, although I think it's going to be a losing battle. Most of that Boston Road area, wetlands that surround it, or Old Boston Road, I think it is, full of Phragmites. And I think it would be virtually impossible to eradicate the invasives out here. But certainly a condition requiring any soil imported to the site to be free of invasives, I think would make sense. That's probably the best we can do. And then just the comment about an approved a DEP-approved snow receiving facility. There's not a ton of those, but DEP does have snow disposal guidelines, which I think a condition requiring the property owner to comply with those snow disposal guidelines that DEP has would make sense. But to try to require them to go to a DEP-approved facility, that might prove difficult. If it's not nearby. And I don't think there's one very close to this site. I think there was one in Lowell that I saw, but...
Is that the one near the movie theater?
I'm not sure. I didn't even know they existed. When I saw the comment from TEC, I had to do some research. They do exist. There's just not a ton of them yet. But DEP does have specific guidelines for snow disposal. So I think requiring the property owner to comply with those would be appropriate in this case.
Yeah, I guess, like, I'm not opposed to the requirement that it be an actual, like, you know, site, DEP site, but like, if those sites are meant for, we're clearing the snow from, you know, a giant parking lot, here's, like, you know, the contract we're gonna enter into, and we're talking about a much smaller amount, what realistically would you be able to get, you know, access to that to drop it off there, as opposed to, would they entertain a small amount of snow as opposed to a very large amount? They might be looking for much larger. That's my concern about that. But do you know off the top of your head, like, what those guidelines are?
Yeah. The intent of the guidelines is, you know, most of the snow that's removed from parking lots, roadways, really busy areas, a lot of times it's full of salt, trash, sand. DEP came up with this policy so that folks weren't just dumping that in areas that had the potential to get into wetland resource areas. So it essentially says that you can't dump the snow in floodplains, riverfront area, or within the 100-foot buffer zone, or resource areas themselves. But somebody in this area could have a large enough lot that's outside of all jurisdictional resource areas that complies with that policy, where a site like this that's very small could have a few dump trucks dump some. It's going to be pretty clean from this site too. They could dump the snow in accordance with that policy, and it wouldn't be an approved DEP facility, but it would comply with the guidelines.
All right. I mean, I'm okay with that.
I'm just wondering where that would be in Tewksbury that's not in the 100-foot buffer zone. And
I know, Tewksbury is a pretty wet town.
I have a hard time finding a spot like that.
I don't think that, I don't think it would be restricted to Tewksbury, but as long as we have something on record that, there's a place for like that, and as you said, so, giving, I don't know the ins and outs of snow removal contracting, and whether you enter a new permit a new agreement every year, it's a 5-year plan or what, but some more information about how likely it is to find a place like that, it would be appreciated.
It's probably going to get easier as the years go on, but right now there's only a few of them in this area. I just didn't want the property owner to have to go to one of those facilities for all the snow events here, that they'd have to remove snow. And, you know, that if they're eliminating the snow melting machine, I think making it a little easier for the property owner just makes sense. And it would still be in accordance with the DEP guidance document.
All right.
Yeah, and I think that would fall on the snow contractor too. Usually the snow contractor, if you're moving it out, it's his responsibility to take it and dump it.
Yeah. I guess the issue I see with the snow contractor, and maybe this is, you know, maybe a condition is just adding signs saying, you know, snow removal has to be in accordance with something like this, because, you know, the property owner might say, I have this agreement with the town saying that the snow removal has to be here, and then they just hire whatever, you know, snow removal contractor is available at the time, and the word is not passed on to them. So I just want to make sure that, you know, potentially something as simple as a sign, just so it's very clear what has to be done, and we can't, like, you know, we don't have issues of snow piling up, you know, elsewhere, so nobody can say that they weren't aware of it, is essentially what I'm getting at and stuff.
Maybe it just has to be something as general as, you know, snow has to be removed and off-site and handled under generally accepted practices.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Something along those lines. We're probably going to have a few signs around this property.
Yeah,
So.
signage makes sense. We use those on a lot of our projects.
All right. Any other questions or concerns from the commission?
I think one thing I forgot to mention, but there was sort of a comment about, from TEC about concern about the potential vernal pool drying up, or, you know, with the change in property use. And I was just wondering if, it might be a stupid idea, but if it was at all possible, or if it would be beneficial to maybe move one of the stormwater chambers that's underground, you know, a little bit closer to that, if that would increase recharge potential, just sort of having that, that system a little closer. If, I know that usually we like to keep things as far away as possible, but if we're thinking that it's fed by groundwater to, I just wanted to sort of float that.
Yeah, I mean, that would, at this point, would require more civil changes in stormwater design. You know, if it's something that the commission really wants us to look at, we can certainly come back, but we'd be coming back at the next hearing in September with those edits if we're able to get them done in time. Also, changing the locations for underground stormwater at this point would require additional test pits, which would require lining up contractors to go out to site. So, you know, if it's something the commission wants to know more about, you know, we can certainly explore that, but we'd be pushing it probably another month or so before we'd be able to get those updated designs to you.
I guess I'm not, so you were saying moving one of the recharge basins closer to the vernal pool. Is there, looking at the plan, I'm not sure where those actually are proposed right now.
Yeah, they're like the shaded boxes on the side of the, I don't know what plan sheet you're looking at, but there are like shaded, the stormwater basins are like shaded boxes on those plans.
So Sam, if it's not, if the groundwater changes, then we'll know if it's really a vernal pool or not, right?
Not necessarily. I think, you know, that just would signify that that wetland is, you know, being primarily like replenished by groundwater. But I don't know that the, you know, it doesn't seem like there's any stormwater infrastructure on the property presently. Like, so even just having those basins, I think, is an improvement at this point. So I don't necessarily feel the need to push that, keeping in mind the applicant's timeline, if, unless the commission, you know, is so moved, so inclined, but.
It was almost full today, and we're in pretty severe drought. I think just that area in general, I don't know that our project's going to have any impact. I mean, there's such a large watershed there, and it seems to be predominantly sand. I think it goes up and down with the elevation of the wetlands. You know, like Tyler said, I can't find an aerial photo that shows that area dry. Mm-hmm. I expected to see the water level a little lower today. It was pretty high.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I guess, where does this leave us currently? We're still waiting on the responses from the peer review, or you responded, and you were waiting on the peer review's response?
So we submitted a response. So there's been 3 rounds so far. We responded last Wednesday, and I think addressed all of the comments. I think it sounded like there were a couple last outstanding ones that we just discussed. So I think that's addressing all of the outstanding comments that we've received. If you have more, I'd certainly be happy to discuss those, but.
No, I think the only thing was just the clarification, I guess, about the front of the lot where we had talked about the stormwater flow. So I don't know the best way to flesh that out, but it seems like a relatively minor, potentially small area that we're talking about. So, you know, I don't know. I think basically I'm sort of satisfied at this point, but if there was a change that, you know, in discussion with TEC that they felt was needed, I don't know if we could incorporate that after the fact, or I don't know what the best course of action would be, I suppose.
But currently, you're asking to continue to the next meeting to satisfy the water, the stormwater in the front of the site?
I believe we addressed those in the most recent filings. It sounded like TEC still had a question or two about where that runoff was going, and I think, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, we had added a small curb at the fence line to limit any water coming from the project facility onto Hillman Street. And right now, I believe the only water that would ever reach Hillman Street is coming from south of the project fence line, just on the driveway apron. There wouldn't be any sort of runoff from the project site itself entering Hillman Street. And I think that was the outstanding question. If that's not correct and TEC still has comments, you know, we can certainly track that down and
Yeah, that's my understanding, and TEC had said, you know, there were a few easy solutions that could be incorporated for that, basically, you know, extension of the curb across that drive, or, you know, something similar. So I think it would be a very minor adjustment to the plan if it's needed. So I don't think it like necessarily should hold anything up. Just wanted to make that mention that was still sort of something. So anyways, I think that could be approved. You know, if the commission is otherwise satisfied, I think we could just flush that out and have that on the final plan. Without any
That's what I guess, like, earlier in this meeting, we were talking about what the potential as-built will look like. And, you know, basically, what you're proposing is the final thing that we have in front of us, or there's still small changes that need to be made to the actual plans and stuff. So TEC's asking for a small redesign of this area.
Yeah, it could be, you know, equivalent to a minor modification down the line. I think maybe there's not total agreement on if it's even necessary at this point. So like, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be incorporated in the plans yet, and if, you know, there were discussions, it could be incorporated as sort of a minor modification, I think, after, you know, if the commission was moved to issue an order of conditions tonight.
So just so you're clear, we rather than propose the curb, we propose some spot grades. So it's going to be higher than the driveway coming up in the area behind that little rise, and that rise is supposed to catch the water and turn it so it doesn't go out into the road. Our fear is, or we talked a little bit about putting a curb, which we could certainly do, but in New England with winter, that curb could require a lot of maintenance every year. With the plow coming in to clear the road, not knowing exactly where the curb is, it could be difficult. So accomplishing the same goal to keep the water out, but instead of putting the curb, just handling it with a slightly higher elevation of the pavement. And it probably wasn't that clear to TEC because they're spot grades and they were probably looking for a curb. But it is higher in that location. But yeah, we can, it could certainly be picked up on an as-built.
All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's like anything, not just this, but like, you know, I'll reiterate, one of the issues we've been having is people, they say they're going to build one thing and then there's all these little changes and not all of them are little, some of them are quite big, and it's like, how did you not think to come to us to get that approved beforehand and starting it? And sometimes there's a little bit more, you know, reasonable that, like, you know, it's somewhat of an emergency, but other times it's just like you built a retaining wall. Like, how did you spend that amount of money to build a retaining wall and not think to, you know, get this approved and stuff? So that's one of the things we're really trying to avoid, that what is proposed is what's going to be built unless there's a minor modification that comes and gets reapproved essentially.
Yep, and one of the boilerplate conditions in the DEP form, if an order of conditions is issued, the state requires any change to the plan to be bounced off the commission to determine whether or not requires additional permitting for activities within your jurisdiction. So we would fully expect to have to at least reach out to the agent and possibly the commission, depending on what the change was, if there were any changes.
All right. All right. So any further questions from the commission before I open up to the public?
Yeah, I have a question. Gentlemen, we talked about this, and this just seems to just keep rolling along. The no partial approvals, entire thing, I believe some of the verbiage we asked you when you said you hadn't had the leases for the interconnect to the grid yet, et cetera, et cetera. So in my interpretation, we can build this, but it's not the complete project. You have to connect it to the grid. So how can we, in totality, know the impact?
Yeah, so like you said, you know, this project doesn't get built without that transmission line. We are still waiting on National Grid giving us the final kind of okay for the route there. There will be buffer impacts, but as of right now, the route has no direct wetland impacts. The kind of segmentation piece that is kind of, I think, what you're bringing up is typically for minimizing direct wetland fill. So if you're segmenting a project and you have 3,000 feet of fill in one section and 3,000 in another, that puts you over that 5,000 square foot threshold, which triggers all sorts of additional impacts or permitting, whether it's Army Corps, MEPA, it's a much higher bar. And so that is where that kind of segmentation piece comes in, is limiting your impacts so that you're under a certain number. Again, right now we have no direct wetland impacts on either site. So we're not kind of keeping it below that threshold by segmenting it. We just don't have the full picture from National Grid yet. But again, this does not have any direct wetland impacts. All we're asking for right now is the ability to remove things from the encroached area. That future transmission line will have to still be permitted.
Well, I mean, I speak for a lot of people in this town, is I think they want to see the whole project.
Sure. This project will not be built until that transmission line is also permitted. I can guarantee that. There will be no construction starting until that transmission line is also approved.
So then we would agree to extend this until you provide that other NOI? We would not go for an approval?
There's no there's nothing that prohibits an applicant from filing multiple permit applications for two separate parts of a project. And Tyler's right, there are segmentation issues that come into play. If we were dealing with priority or estimated habitat, Natural Heritage makes it clear that you can't segment a project to avoid filing with them, or avoid filing something that might require a conservation and management permit. We don't have any mapped habitat here. If we had riverfront area there's also some limitations there. You can only alter a certain amount of riverfront area, and that's for the whole project. So there's some impacts that would come into play there. We don't have any rivers. And if we were altering BVW, like Tyler said, there's a discretionary threshold of 5,000 square feet. So we're not proposing any alteration to BVW here either. So we have buffer zone impacts, and there's no segmentation issues with buffer zone projects. That's just a fact. You can file as many notice of intents as you want. It doesn't make sense to file multiple notice of intents. We would love to have filed one for the whole project, but the reality is we just didn't have all the pieces yet to do that. But there's nothing that should prohibit us from doing what we're asking the commission to do. And we should have every right to file a separate notice of intent for the next phase of this project.
But I guess my understanding is that National Grid they prefer to, if like this is not their land, and so they don't want to allow somebody to file a notice of intent for their land unless this other project is already approved and going forward. Is that?
Not quite. Their review process is taking months. We submitted this back to them. I mean, we've been talking with them for 2 years on this project through interconnection and stuff. They are just taking a long time to review the exact location. There's a lot of other infrastructure on their land, as you can imagine. There's 2 or 3 substations there, countless overhead transmission lines, underground utilities, and they just need to make sure that the route that we are taking is not affecting their ability to use their land as well. And so they don't want us applying for the notice of intent until they have finalized the exact location. There are a lot of wetlands on that site as well, so we're not able to submit a notice of intent without them saying this is the exact location that you can use. So we've just been kind of in a waiting pattern for them to give us the final route location down to the foot. We have kind of a 10-foot buffer of where we think it's going to be going. And we're talking about 2 to 3 feet in either direction right now with them on where that line will go exactly. But again, right now there are no direct wetland impacts, only buffer. So there's no fill or anything like that taking place.
And just to be clear, you guys do have the right to file a notice of intent for wherever, but you're, like waiting for National Grid, technically speaking, you could do it, but it doesn't make any sense from your point of view to go forward with another notice of intent until you get their approval.
They would have to sign as a property owner, I believe, because it's their land. And then the other piece is, we don't want to file a notice of intent with no wetland impacts if their final approval comes back and says, actually, for this section, you do need to go into the wetlands. So there is a chance in the future National Grid comes back and changes their locations that they want us to go through. So we don't want to file a notice of intent just to have that route change and that notice of intent be, not the accurate notice of intent and have to come back and do it all over again. That's why we've kept it separate, because we want to make sure that that route is finalized and we don't need to come back to you all if National Grid changes their mind on that location.
But we have been trying.
Yeah. So does that answer your question?
No, I would still like to see the entire project. I would like to get this to the point where everyone's happy, and then I would love to see this other thing, because we don't know what we're going to deal with. Just verbiage right there. What happens if we deal with more? We need to look at this in totality for the town, our resources. I'm not comfortable saying, build this and, it's just, the CMR is clear to me. I'm a black and white guy, I do contracts. I don't believe this is, believe this is part one of a 2-part system. And I just don't see how I could say, yeah, go ahead.
It's really no different than somebody coming in with a residential subdivision and approving the roadway and drainage system, and then coming through with separate notice of intent applications for each individual lot.
And I completely understand this, but we're talking about a volatile battery, I'm very familiar with lithium. We're very close to resource areas. We have a lot of visibility here. I'm just trying to do what's right for everyone, because that's why I signed up here. As far as a subdivision, yep, but they're not bringing in lithium batteries. They're not, they're not asking to go through the Great Swamp for the transmission lines. So there's my side of it. The rest of the commission has their own feelings, but if you're doing a litmus test, there's where I lean.
Anybody else want to bring up any questions or concerns at this point?
So you're saying basically this thing could just sit here and build a project and you've got a battery plant and no place to hook it up to?
That's why I'm saying this will never get built without that transmission line being approved as well. I can guarantee this project will not get built without that transmission line being approved. If you'd like to put a condition that we can't start construction until that section is finalized as well, I'd be more than happy. But like I said, I can guarantee the project's worth nothing without that transmission line, and we would never get financial approval to build it without that line.
I think we've already agreed that construction on this project can't start until you've at least applied for the other notice of intent. You're kind of making it, you're proposing right now to make it a little bit more, the other notice of intent would have to be fully vetted and approved before construction could start.
Correct, yeah, I can guarantee you with 100% certainty this project will not get built or even get approved for construction from our internal kind of approval processes until that transmission line has also been approved. It would never happen.
And most likely, unless, I wouldn't know the ins and outs of it, but the other notice intent would require you to go through the wetlands that are back there, right?
Again, right now, there are no direct wetland impacts along the route that we're talking to National Grid with. It traverses upland for our property and the initial property of National Grid, and then it would go underneath an access road that they have right now that's also upland. So again, it would be in buffer zone, but there are no direct wetland impacts of the route we have talked to so far.
Yeah, because National Grid, they propose rebuilding the, power lines. We haven't gotten one in a few months, but like for a while there, it was like, every other meeting, it was, let's replace this giant structure that's directly in the wetlands and stuff. So that I was assuming that it would be something along those lines of going directly in and putting down the giant mats and stuff to protect the wetlands. But you're saying it's all uplands.
Yeah, as of again, right now, the route we are talking with National Grid about, that is, like the route is fully in uplands for the entirety of it. Now, National Grid can come back and change their mind. Exactly. Well, yeah.
Is the correct term.
Now, there's, certainly room for change, and that's, again, why we haven't submitted the NOI yet, because we want National Grid's final approval that the route does not have impacts, so that we can come submit that without having to change it and adding impacts if National Grid changes their mind or something. But these are also, it's a smaller type of transmission line than the big ones that they have. The majority of it right now is underground, minus the section over the railroad. But again, you'll see a full application there.
And just to be clear again, we're not up against any regulatory thresholds with the current notice of intent that's before the commission right now. So we're not teetering on 4,900 square feet of BVW alteration or anything, no riverfront, no priority habitat, no estimated habitat. There's no resource area impact in the current application.
All right. Any questions or concerns at this time?
So where are we right now? We're waiting for final comments from TEC? Is that response to your last?
I think the final comment that I'm waiting on doesn't necessarily need, it doesn't need to be a reason to hold anything. It could be a minor modification if the commission was inclined to issue an order tonight.
If you feel you need TEC to respond, we can come back in 2 weeks in September, but I believe all of the comments have been addressed.
I mean, I personally speaking, I'm okay with a minor modification. I'm not the only one voting, and I have not opened up to the public. You know, if you do think that that is a, like, you know, as we've been saying, we just had a hearing in which things weren't quite where they were. They didn't come back for a minor modification. You know, I think the size of the company we're dealing with, it's not a, you know, smaller business trying to, you know, squeeze a project into a timeline. They have a lot more resources and stuff to come back to us with, you know, a minor modification. So I'm not worried about you know, realistically, if you start building something, there's going to be small changes, deviations. Hopefully they are so small that an as-built is like, you know, it was off by an inch or two or something like that. That's my biggest concern. I don't have an issue with, you know, asking for, you know, the final plans to have everything incorporated, because right now it's most likely they don't have to do anything, but they might have to come. So that's where, you know, unless you want to bump that up to definitely have everything written, you know, etched in stone and don't do anything until it's, you know, completed, we can go that option. But again, like it's, you know, it's a very small portion of the project, it seems. So I'm not sure what the benefit of holding it up in that way would be, but.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to figure out where we were. I wasn't sure exactly what, you know, what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of back and forth and.
Yeah. All right. So if there's no more, I'm sure there will be more, there's potential for more discussion from the commission, but at this time, I'm going to open up to the public. Once again, I am going to limit comment period to 3 minutes per person. If the same people start to get up and talk, I'm going to end the comment period, or I'm going to close the public hearing, or request to close the public hearing, because I just don't want to be repeating ourselves all night. It's already somewhat late. So, that being said, is there anybody who would like to? It's open. If you would like to rise, and I just ask that you state your name, and I will try to moderate.
My name is Dawn Sheehan. I live at 100 B Star Ave. So I'm just curious, at this point, do we actually know where the transmission line is going to come into 73 Hillman?
All right, so this is, once again, talking about a not quite hypothetical future project, but we don't know where the exact other NOI would be proposed, but you know, where would it come into the site from?
Sure, yeah, it'll be along the kind of northwest diagonal property line furthest from Hillman and Clinton Street.
But from the actual documented paperwork that we have received, we do not have that in print. You have changed it from the initial, but we have no evidence of what is actually planned currently. Is that correct?
No, I don't believe so. I believe it was submitted as part of the EFSB applications. We haven't submitted it to the Conservation Committee because it wasn't part of this NOI.
Because we don't know where their transmission line is even coming in, and
You're correct, it's not part of this NOI.
but it's impacting this project. So viewing just this project, we don't know where that transmission line is coming in. I mean, what if it got changed to underground directional horizontal drilling? Who knows? We don't have that piece of information, and you just said that National Grid could change things. So what if then they changed it to go underground?
We'd have to file a permit application for whatever those activities are.
But it would affect this project
It would not.
if you went underground instead?
What's before the commission tonight, it would not impact anything that we're asking the commission to approve as part of this notice of intent application. And we've made it clear that this project won't happen if that project isn't approved or something happens with that next notice of intent that we're going to file. What we're asking for tonight is very specific to what's before the commission. It has nothing to do with the next phase of the project.
So the battery storage units are all the boxes, they're all lined up, they're all going to that section in the back of the project. And I believe you're asking which direction that would come in from. You're saying it's just
Yeah, it essentially leaves at that northwest kind of diagonal property line.
Yeah.
Perpendicular to that line underneath the transmission lines that are there overhead right now.
So going away from Clinton Street? All right. But, so it would go to that side of the project, but after that, we don't know exactly where it would go in the next notice of intent.
Correct. Yeah, that's what's up for discussion with National Grid, but high level, it crosses over the train tracks and then undergrounds underneath their access road and follows that to the substation to the west.
But the actual, connection points are going to go, regardless of where it has to go elsewhere in the future, it's exiting that part of the project, the northwest part. That's the only way you could get it out, get the electricity from the batteries back into the grid to and from and stuff.
So you're where that switch gear is indicated in the aft portion?
Mm-hmm.
I assume that's switch gear?
Yeah, so that's a project level substation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know, what is the rush on having to get this NOI approved before the next one? What is the big, this project's going to take years to complete. So if we're just a matter of months, what is the rush on just waiting for everything to be completed altogether?
I think it's not so much of a rush, it's just doing the due diligence of getting this project approved so National Grid can have it in front of them. Please.
We also have internal kind of milestones that projects need to be hitting, and regulatory milestones, things like that, that kind of require projects to continue moving forward.
You have investor groups, money behind you. Yep.
So one of the issues with the peer review is they are used to conducting reviews of traditional stormwater systems. This is not what that is. They are concerned about oils and floatables, total suspended solids. That is not what this project deals with. Here we are dealing with diluted toxins, and in nowhere in the peer review does it even acknowledge that. And that is one of our biggest concerns. And I really feel like because of TEC's limited familiarity with projects like this, it's something that's being overlooked. It would be, I don't know if that's something that it could be relayed by the commission, that this is a different beast than just a housing project. But also, we still have the outstanding issue of the Tewksbury bylaw requiring a vegetated system.
30 seconds.
I have not been speaking for 3 minutes. I'm sorry, but a lot of my time was taken up.
I've been pausing my timer when we've been discussing.
It hasn't been 3 minutes. I just want to go through this. Is that okay?
I have given you 3 minutes. I've paused it while we've talked, not eating into your time. You have about 30 seconds left.
So this is a vegetated system that has been proposed that would meet all of those standards. So here we have a BESS battery, and then it would be asphalt underneath. And so rather than the crushed gravel, that would allow 80% of the diluted toxins to go directly into our wetlands. If there was asphalt underneath, it would then flow into a catch basin. And you notice here the catch basin has 2 different outputs here. So the bottom output would allow it to all of the initial water to go into a bioretention pond. So this would meet the natural vegetated system that the Tewksbury bylaw requires. And also, it would have an inlet with a shutoff valve. So if there were if there was a fire, what could happen is to shut off this valve so that contaminated water would not be going into the vegetated system. It could then go into this detention pond where it could then be treated.
I just want to say that 3 minutes is up. I ask that you wrap it up.
I will take my 3 minutes. I was going to let her talk. She can continue. I will not.
I don't think that's how it works. I don't have
I've been to many of these meetings and I have not seen people capped at 3 minutes previously. I'm not causing problems.
I have capped every discussion at this meeting at 3 minutes.
Only for this project. I have seen very many other Conservation Commission meetings that the people have not been capped to 3 minutes. So I just want to.
But for this project, I am capping it at 3 minutes. That's how I've been running this meeting for the entire time. If you want to finish your thought,
So then, if there was a fire, this could be shut off. The water would then go into the higher port here, into this detention area, allowing for the waters to be tested and then dealt with before they would be released into our sensitive area. And so we are wondering why a system like this has not been considered, because this fulfills all of the requirements of the Tewksbury bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any comments in response to that?
I think on the first part, the DEP's own website and research states that there's been no evidence of contamination during fire events for battery facilities like this one. The other piece is, if the entire site were to be asphalt, it would not be able to meet other DEP standards that the project is required to adhere to.
I'd also just like to comment about the TEC. Like, that's a company, it's one of the half a dozen or so companies that Tewksbury reaches out to provide comments, to do peer reviews. We've relied on them continually, at least during my time on the commission. Like, I understand and appreciate that this is not a simple, housing development or anything like that, but I want to give them some credit that they're not just, they're well respected and, they've done their due diligence as far as I can see, not just for this project, but for every project I've seen. Is there anybody else who would like to?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Christopher Senni. I'm an attorney. I represent Maureen De Palma, who is here this evening, and Dennis Sheehan. They own several properties that wrap around the subject property. We have submitted documents ahead of your July 14th meeting from our water resources consultant, Scott Horsley, and ahead of this meeting as well. In both cases, we've given copies to the applicant. In the July 13th package from Mr. Horsley, he pointed out the faults with the proposed revised stormwater management system. There's been no mounding analysis. The HydroCAD analysis was not done correctly. The separation from seasonal high groundwater was not done correctly. And it's not consistent with Section 5.6 of the Tewksbury zoning bylaws, which requires the vegetated system, which Dawn was showing you here. In the August 10th submission, just 2 days ago, I make a suggestion that we're looking for conditions that the applicant contain rainwater and firewater wash in basically a parking lot where the best systems are, and that water flows into catch basins, as Dawn pointed out here. This is something that Scott Horsley, who's a very highly regarded water resources consultant, says does meet DEP requirements, and it would provide greater protection because toxins are vented from these containers intentionally if there's a thermal runaway, and there have been quite a few thermal runaways in the United States at these facilities, and those toxins mix with rain if it happens to be raining the day that there's an event or the next day, or firefighting wash, even firefighting wash to cool adjacent containers. 80% of that will go into the ground and will never get to the stormwater management system and will flow toward the wetlands. The 20% that does go will not be mitigated by the water quality unit. It will pass right through because those units only deal with total suspended solids, oils, and floatables. Using a vegetated system is referenced in your land disturbance regulations. It's required in the zoning bylaw, and it has been used in other cases. Recently, you may know that the town of Oakham approved a BEST project, the Morega project, and the siting board said, the siting board directs the company to contain the firewater effluent in the stormwater basins, test the effluent for contaminants, share the results with the town of Oakham and the siting board, and if contamination is found, the company must take steps to ensure the contaminated firewater is not discharged outside the basin. You don't have that with this plan. You have a standard stormwater management plan. We are asking the commission to ask the applicant to please take Scott Horsley's conceptual design and turn it into an engineered plan so that we can see how many BEST containers would you get, and would this be a better system for protecting the environment. This matter should be continued for the reasons already mentioned. One of the things the applicant can do between now and mid-September is take this concept and give you an alternative plan so that the board can have comfort to know that we're really going to be protecting the wetland resources. Your jurisdiction goes beyond the 100-foot buffer, where there are a couple of containers and a couple of inverters. It goes past that because all areas that have BEST containers...
Your 3 minutes are up. I ask that you...
Okay, I'll just finish my sentence. All the areas around the BEST containers drain into the buffer zone and are directed into the wetlands. So we should look at these toxins and we should look at the vegetated system, and the engineering firm for the company can do that plan before your next meeting. And I ask the commission to please ask the applicant to do that. Thank you.
So to address that a little bit, this might be what Scott Horsley is proposing might be a better plan, but a lot of it is wrapped up in not complying with the town's zoning requirements and even though the zoning requirements might say something that perhaps should be in the wetland bylaw, it's not in the bylaw, and we cannot base our decision on the zoning bylaw. Like, that's just, it's not allowed. So, realistically, if one of us were to say, gee, I don't like this because it doesn't comply with this part of the zoning bylaw, that's like an automatic, it just wouldn't be allowed if we were to vote whichever way. Like, it's just, a judge would look at that and go, no, like, that's not how this works. We have to base it in our jurisdictional area. So I appreciate it. I mean, if you want to continue and take a look at this and do it, but I don't see how we can compel the applicant to go more than what's required. That's, why we have these laws, is somebody else, the state of Massachusetts and town meeting has, made these laws and said, this is what we want to see the standard set to. So far, it seems like you've, whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, it seems like they've complied with what the current laws are, and we are not allowed to compel them to go above and beyond what the current laws are. From, at least that's.
Reply to that.
So I want to let you reply to that. My issue is, so far during this meeting, the next time, when somebody gets up twice, that's when I've said, all right, clearly nobody else wants to get up, or they would be in line. So if you want to wait and anybody else who wants to get up, I just don't want you to close the public hearing unintentionally responding, but we can.
I'm happy to wait.
All right.
I just would like to add too, on the zoning bylaw piece, this was part of the previous Energy Facility Siting Board application that we went through. We had 3 weeks of testimony based on these issues, and the state granted us an exemption from the Tewksbury bylaws that are being referenced there.
Good evening. My name is Harini Iyer. I am currently the candidate running for the 17th Middlesex District that consists of Tewksbury, 1st Precinct. So I am speaking on behalf of my constituents whom I have been listening to. I have been listening to this meeting very carefully. Thank you for organizing and thank you for all of the insightful questions. I have 2 questions for the committee. One, you just said that you had, your peer review process, you have been in contact with other towns that have similar peer review processes. Do any of these towns that you consult with or collaborate with, do they have BESS sites? If yes, are you using the same standards as they are? Or if no, would it be better for the TEC and Tewksbury Conservation Commission to basically talk to other towns that have the BESS sites and how they have organized their conservation around it? That is my first question.
So to respond to that first question, TEC, the peer reviewer, probably does peer reviews and project permits for a whole host of towns. As a commission member, I have not been in contact with any other towns about what they've done. I can't speak for everybody else on the commission. I am assuming that the town has contacted other towns about this, but I don't know that for sure.
But don't you think that should be the standard, where when there is no state law that actually sets the standard, the best way to go about it should not be, we can't force them to follow above the law, but it should be mostly for the human good, right? As Don pointed out, there are some ways that you are looking at it that are probably based for solid waste, those kind of regulations, and this should be looked at in a different way because this is new and we want to set standards going forward and not limit ourselves to what we have. Thank you for answering that question. The second question I have, and this is one that follows the toxin. So one of the methods for regulating a lithium-ion battery fire, which is well accepted by the EPA, is the MAUI method, which is using a concentrated brine solution. to discharge the lithium battery and that thereby making it less flammable. Is there a plan in your whatever you're planning, is there a way for the water to be discharged properly? Because if it is not, that's going to increase the salinity of your wetland, and it's something that you should be thinking about.
The question is whether we're looking at the proper stormwater runoff and how this...
It's not for stormwater runoff. It is basically for specifically if they are going to have brine in the campus to put out or to discharge lithium-ion batteries in case they catch fire, or like after, to mitigate the risk, right? But where does that water go? If it's there's going to be considerable amount of that water. Is it going to be carted out? Is it going to be put into a retention pond? Will that retention pond have enough volume to retain salt water before it can be desalinized? These are the questions that I would think would be relevant. So with that, I'll, take my remainder of time, but that's something for you to think about as well.
So I guess you were saying desalination and brine. Are these battery storage units, like I don't know the exact chemical composition, but there's the understanding is, of course, is if one of these catches fire, it has to be put out. We've discussed that it's up to the fire, department to figure out the best practices of that, and you have recommendations, or there are recommendations and stuff. My understanding is that, the runoff from any potential fire would be similar to the stormwater. It would penetrate the ground immediately below where it lands, make its way through the filtration basins and into the jurisdictional or the wetlands, closest to the site. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think what she's referring to is after a fire, the batteries need to be de-energized to transport them off the site. If the entire system doesn't kind of burn itself out, and there's still some battery containers in that shipping container, if you will, if it's only a third of it that actually burns, you do need to de-energize the rest of the batteries in order to transport it. I've not seen this salinity method or the salt brine method that she's referring to. I think that's typically used for EV batteries and car batteries and things like that, when there's not kind of you don't have the ability to take your time with it and you need to transport it quickly. The methods that I've seen for de-energizing batteries after fires is typically kind of large capacitors that you bring to the site. It's a long process to do this safely, and there's a lot of kind of safety requirements around that. There's special contractors it's their sole job is kind of working with these batteries in the post-fire state. So I don't think that the brine solution is the only way to de-energize these systems. Like I said, I've seen systems that are able to do the same thing without any sort of liquid being involved. And then in the event of a fire, like you said, the batteries themselves are not leaking liquid during a fire. It would only be if the fire department were to, hose the entire thing down, which again is not part of the emergency response plan and would not be the recommendation from us or part of the emergency response plan that'll be worked through with the fire department.
I have not seen how the fire department said they were going to spray brine on this. And the brine is, by the way, Tesla just had an example of that, of a car that ran away. They put it in the shipping container with brine to de-energize it.
Yeah.
Neat little video. But I don't believe I have not seen that. I was in understanding they were spraying traditional water
Yeah, if the fire department's going to use anything, it would be kind of a mist spray on adjacent containers just to keep temperature down. Correct. There wouldn't be any sort of, or at least our recommendation, again, we can't tell the fire department, don't put water on this if they feel they need to, but the recommendation and the training that we would give them through a third party whose sole job is responding to fires at facilities like this, is you don't put water on it and you just mist adjacent containers while that single container kind of burns itself out.
All right, so, but it's up to the fire department to keep abreast of the current and most up-to-date methods of putting these things out.
Yeah, and as part of the host community agreement that was signed a few months back, the company is required to, one, host a training with the Tewksbury Fire Department, all of the shifts that they have, and we're reimbursing the fire department for any overtime that they have while they're at that training. And that'll be an annual training as well as any equipment the fire department feels that they need to respond to an event, whether it's thermal imaging cameras or thermal drones or whatever the fire department thinks that they need. We're also reimbursing them for the equipment there as well.
I just want to go back to one statement ago. You said the state of Massachusetts exempted you from what exactly?
Yeah, so the Energy Facility Siting Board granted us a comprehensive zoning exemption. So we are exempt from the Tewksbury zoning bylaws, which that section 5.6 that Mr. Stenny was referencing as a part of. As a part of that zoning exemption, there were 103 conditions, I believe, that kind of are designed to still ensure that the project is operating within the way that it's supposed to and how the state sees best fit for the facility. But they exempted us from setbacks and height restrictions and things like that.
So this was part of the current leadership, I think the new Green Deal, I believe this is tied into.
Oh, the state's
green energy deal, which is not green. That's, I just wanted to clarify that.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments?
Hi, I'm Sandra Poole, 64 Emerald Court. I have questions and concerns. The town's own planning board record says that when land disturbance permitting was moved towards this commission, that under Chapter 19, compliance was expected to continue throughout comprehensive stormwater review. So I'm here tonight because I'm hearing about compliance for the applicant, not going above and beyond. But we need to make sure that environmental protections required by Tewksbury are actually satisfied before land disturbance occurs, okay? So Chapter 19 specifically recognizes that increased stormwater, contamination runoff, erosion, sedimentation can affect the wetlands, groundwater, drainage systems, flooding, and abutting properties. So those are exactly the issues that I believe we're examining tonight, right? So I respectfully ask this commission, first, whether the stormwater calculations adequately address major storm events and where does all that runoff go, okay? Second, erosion and sedimentation controls. Are they going to protect the neighboring properties? And third, groundwater impacts. Have they been adequately evaluated? And fourth, the wetland boundaries and the buffer areas, have they been independently verified? And finally, whether this commission has all the information it needs to make a defensible decision under both the Wetland Protection Act and Tewksbury's Chapter 19 requirements. So I am asking this commission not to allow important environmental questions to be deferred until construction begins. This commission has the responsibility to protect Tewksbury's wetlands, groundwater, neighborhood properties, and the residents. I respectfully ask that you make sure that the responsibility is fully exercised before approving any notice of intent or any land disturbance permits. Thank you.
Ma'am, you had the 5 questions. Could you either repeat those a little bit slower? I just want to make sure. Or if you could provide that, that'd be, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so to take this one by one, the stormwater calculations, you've provided stormwater calculations, TEC has agreed with them. The runoff will ultimately go into the wetlands as stormwater goes into the wetlands. The erosion and sediment controls, I forget exactly what we have. This is a very big project. It's not just a driveway. Can we just go over what the erosion and sediment controls are right now?
Trench silt fence and compost filter sock.
All right.
And once the stormwater pollution prevention plan is prepared through the EPA NPDES program, there'll be a separate standalone SWIP plan that may incorporate additional erosion controls that can be brought in if needed.
All right. And
But the entire limit of work, not just within the commission's jurisdiction, but the entire limit of work is protected with erosion controls right now until areas are stabilized, and erosion controls remain in place until those areas are stabilized and permission for the removal is granted by this commission.
All right. Third, whether the groundwater impacts have been adequately evaluated. Again, you've looked at the impacts. TEC has agreed with them. Our conservation agent is very new, but past acting conservation agents have also reviewed this and agree about the evaluation. Whether the wetland boundaries and buffer areas have been independently verified. I don't really know exactly how to answer that. I mean, like we have maps of the GIS maps and stuff. Is there other ways to verify the wetland zones and stuff?
Yeah, the wetland resource areas were delineated by Epsilon wetland scientists from our office. I think, Sam, you saw the wetland out back. It's tough to get that one wrong. Looks like it was probably mechanically dug at some point in time many moons ago. It's what we call a toe slope wetland, very little margin of error. That's the bylaw jurisdictional resource area. And then we've got a small section of bordering vegetated wetlands that sheds a buffer onto the project along the western half. They're shown in our plan. They were survey located. I mean, TEC could have taken a look at them if they wanted to. They left it up to the commission. We're confident in our boundaries.
Mm-hmm. And then whether the commission has all the information it needs to make a defensible decision under both the Wetlands Protection Act and Tewksbury Chapter 19 requirements. I mean, not to get too philosophical, but that's why we're here. We're trying to decide if we have enough information on this. So unless anybody from the commission would like to add additional comments, I hope we answered those questions adequately. I apologize if not, but we're trying to, that's what we're trying to do is get all the information and make an appropriate decision.
I would like to hear the gentleman's response, please. Yes, please. Well, I don't think we don't have to, let's go do it while it's fresh in our mind. I don't want to wait half an hour to hear his retort.
so before we continue, because I've been running the meeting in one way, this is a deviation from that. I just want to make sure that we're all on board and how we're gonna, I don't want to hear, an endless rotation of the same comments. That's not going to be helpful to us, the applicant, or, anybody here tonight.
Well,
So we have to have
He actually has a direct response to your statements. Because you made very specific statements, and I'd like to hear his response.
All right, so is this a one-off?
Yes,
This is a one-off, you can
Are you
respond.
responding to the statements he made specifically?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so after this, we'll go back to the regular
3 minutes, yes.
flow of
Thank
things.
you
All
for
right.
the exemption, but it is fresh in my mind.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. This site is in a Zone 2, which is a wellhead protection area. It's also in the town's groundwater protection district. It's near a large wetland, and it's got a high water table. So this is a challenging site for the applicant to have chosen. Section 5.6 of the zoning bylaw was taken verbatim from a DEP sample bylaw that's on their website for protecting drinking water. The town incorporated it verbatim into the bylaw. The Stormwater Management Handbook is something you do enforce. And in Standard 6, it requires that you consider all local regulations and bylaws that have to do with stormwater. So it doesn't matter that the EFSB exempted this project from local zoning. From a stormwater management and a conservation commission point of view, that language still exists, and under the Stormwater Management Handbook, you should be considering that because it's dealing directly with stormwater management in a Zone 2. Your land disturbance regulations mention vegetated systems, not requiring them, but preferring them. This is why I think the commission should at least ask the applicant, would you be willing to show an alternative plan that used the vegetated system? The Energy Facility Siting Board is sending you a signal in the decision they rendered that they want you to do a vigorous, thorough job. That decision said those agencies are not precluded by the grant of zoning exemptions by the board in this proceeding from making an independent assessment of design and mitigation issues to ensure compliance with otherwise applicable federal, state, and local law and regulations. The board is actually hoping to hear from you on this very issue. This is a difficult issue. And what I'm asking is to simply ask the applicant, would you take a look at this vegetated system and the containment of firewash and rainwater? Because the wetland is right there and there are dangers here. So that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
All right. Public hearing is still ongoing. Is there anybody else who would like to make a question or comment?
Gerard Corbin, 82 Emerald Court. I guess I have a bunch of questions, and the first one is, I did not realize there was an updated peer review document. How do we get access to that? I know the original one was posted on site at the Tewksbury website on the BSS section, but I was totally caught off guard tonight to find out that there was not only a new updated report, but that the applicant had had the luxury and time to respond to it. How does the public get to know this?
So I guess the last meeting, we continued in part because we were waiting on the peer review response comments. As far as accessing it, I believe it's typically posted to the website, to the town website, or you could contact the conservation, the acting conservation agent for that information.
So we can ask you for it when it's there, but we don't know it's there. So if I went to the website today and I went to there's a BESS section, I found the original peer review there and I found the original responses from Hillman, but I did not find a new one. And I looked at that probably around 2 o'clock today. So I think in the spirit of transparency, which I know all of the commissions and boards in town of Tewksbury aspire to, I think that you ought to now give us some time to, A, have that, make sure that that's published, and B, give us some time so that we can look at it and also provide feedback. So that's my first note, okay? Second thing is, I hope you got it, I know Mr. Maynard told me he forwarded it on July 17th, I think it was. I forwarded 4 documents to the members of the commission. The first was the total EFSB final decision, which runs for about 200 pages, and I really didn't expect anybody in the commission to read it, but I thought it would be useful for them to have it on hand, because the second document that I sent was an extract of that. At the end of the EFSB final report is 104 conditions that they have imposed on Hillman in terms of being able to build this facility. I'm not an expert in conservation. I went through it. I found approximately 39 that seem to be relevant to conservation issues. Some of them have to do with snow, some have to do with vegetation, and some have to do with wetland planning. I don't know if any of you people had a chance to look at it. I don't know if anybody forwarded it to TEC, but it is the conditions as specified. I did take some liberties. I highlighted some things in red, and I did put a few comments in black, but the text of the 104 conditions, and at least 39 of them, I believe, are conservation related. I encourage you, you should have read them. At the very least, you should make sure that TEC has them, because those are the things that they're holding Hillman to. And I honestly believe there are some discrepancies between what's in the NOI and that. For example, snow removal, we talk about that a lot. The snow removal that Hillman put in the NOI says that they will plow all access roads, and that's about it. The condition that's been imposed on them, both in the HCA and in the final decision from the EFSB, is that they have to plow so that all battery units are accessible. So to me, that means they have to plow or remove snow between all of the battery units, which is significantly more snow than just plowing the access roads. Maybe I have it wrong, but I think someone has to look at that. Finally, the very first meeting we had, there were a whole bunch of questions. At the end of the meeting, Mr. Ronan, you said, we got a bunch of questions we need answers to. A bunch of the questions were asked by the commission, a bunch were asked by residents. When I asked 3 weeks ago, if you had ever gotten any responses from Hillman, you said no, and I was a little shocked, but not really. Some of the questions you asked had to do with snow removal, EPA permits, sound walls, wildlife access, heat generation, soil and drought affairs, total to do long-term maintenance, runoff, landscaping, use of pesticides, whether the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had been involved and downstream towns notified. I don't know if you've got answers to those, but before you make decisions, you ask those questions. I strongly suggest that you make sure you feel comfortable with the answers. For all the above reasons, I think delaying a final vote for at least one more meeting so the town members can look at the documents, and that you make sure you and TAC have all the information they need is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. 30 days on a project that's going to be a multi-year project.
Sir, you've gone over your time. I ask that you
Thank you for your
finish.
Well, I guess I'll ask you folks, have you looked at the feasibility of the BESS system? The stormwater management that they've
With the vegetative plan?
Yeah, the plan that was up on the board there.
Yeah, so given the site constraints in terms of size, an underground system was by far preferred, and it still does meet Tewksbury's bylaws. The vegetated system is not required, and I think compared to what is on site currently today in terms of stormwater management, any sort of addition of a stormwater management system would be beneficial to that area. With that said, I think at this stage in the project's design, adding in above ground vegetated systems is probably infeasible. We're locked into the project size through the ISO, the Independent System Operator of New England, ISO New England's interconnection studies. So downsizing to incorporate that's probably not feasible at this stage, but was certainly something that we looked at in early site development. Because, underground systems are also far more expensive than vegetated systems. But to make a site work on this location, underground was preferred and does meet Tewksbury's bylaw and DEP standards.
Okay, thanks.
Public hearing is still going on. If there's anybody who would like to make a comment, now's the time to do so.
Dawn Chan, 100B Star Ave. I do think that is something that's open to discussion on whether or not a vegetated system is required by the Tewksbury bylaw. I don't know if that's something that all of you have taken a close look at the Tewksbury bylaw and how it's worded, because it does require a vegetated system. So that seems to be something that is being overlooked. The way that the language is written, it has to be very specific. It says other types of systems are allowed that meet the requirement of the vegetated system. So they can't have it both ways. One thing we know is technology is continually advancing. They used to douse these things with water in order to put them out. Then they switched to foam. A lot of things have changed. How do we know that the way of putting out fires now, the let it burn approach, won't change down the road? And they'll find chemicals that are better at putting this out. Have you seen the documentation that 80% of the water runoff will go directly untreated into the ground? That's a fact that has not been denied by the company. So 80% of this untreated water. And there have been times, even people on our board and other boards have said there's this one fire that happened and there was no contaminants in the air, water, or soil. I've personally pulled those public records myself to find that soil and water were never actually tested. This is a common occurrence. And Maura Healy is the one pushing all of these. And in her talking about the data centers, she said that these should not be at the result, they should not result in a degradation of water quality. This should not be affecting our water supply. And the way that this stormwater system is designed, it absolutely will. So, and again, the stormwater handbook requires compliance with local bylaws. So the fact that the EFSB had an exemption from bylaws, it does not apply here. And also, if you read that letter that they put out, that one of the quotes that we included, it said that you have your own authority to go through this. They got just the initial, okay, it looks good from our house type stamp on it. This is our house.
30 seconds.
This is where we are supposed to be looking at this with a fine-tooth comb. Has the TEC dealt with battery energy facilities systems before? Do we know?
I don't know for certain whether they have or not.
So this is new technology. And this is something, it's in a super, super sensitive zone. Wouldn't that be worth looking into to see if they have experience in this, rather than just saying they do lots of things for lots of towns? Thank you.
All right. The time has come. I'm going to entertain a motion to close the public hearing, not continue the public hearing, but to actually close it. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Wait. Just for tonight or for all?
For all.
What? We have so many unanswered questions.
I guess from my perspective, I'm comfortable making a decision tonight. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels. I'll phrase it like this. if anybody on the commission wants to continue to the next meeting, let's discuss why and then do that.
I would like to know, has TES dealt with lithium battery?
TEC.
TEC, whatever it is. Have they dealt with specifically this?
You would like to ask our peer review?
I would like to know that for sure.
So I guess my follow-up question to that, if they have not, if this is the first time they've dealt with Best System, but they've contacted other agencies that have, or perhaps one of their current employees was advising them and, dealt with this in the past in a former job, how is that going to affect your decision?
My decision would be based on the response.
On the response.
Right. I'm not going to vote on something that, they brought up great valid points. Have we run this to ground? Have we done our job, 100%? I would like to know that, and if they say, hey, they have an expert on staff, great. Or they reached out, well, I'd like to see it in writing.
All right, but I guess if they have not dealt with this specific issue, or not issue, but a project of a similar size and scope, or even just one battery pack, does that disqualify them? Are we saying we don't trust your entire peer review based on?
No, we would ask them to contact somebody on our behalf and have them validate their responses. I don't know. You got to realize lithium there's gases, there's solids, there's this, especially on a meltdown, on a reverse polarity. There's so many X factors here, and I don't want them dumping into the ground. I don't think it's the right thing to do. The green energy deal here is, Maura Healey's directive. Let's get more energy out there. Let's do this. Shouldn't hurt us. Shouldn't put our groundwater at risk. And I don't think it's a 2 or 3 week delay isn't going to change anything. They don't even have their stuff from National Grid yet.
All right, so is the rest of the commission feeling the same way?
Well, Deanne, my concern, I think most of the questions that have been asked have already been answered. I hear the same questions over and over, and we have answers to them. My only concern is that there seems to be a feeling that there's documents that have not been posted on our website that the public has not been able to access. So that, to me, is disturbing, because everybody should have access to the information, and I know it's not done on purpose, but can we delay to make sure everything is posted and people have access to it? Does that... Just to make sure people know that nothing is being hidden?
For the sake of transparency, I don't see anything wrong with, I guess, trying to get to a static, amount of documents that are available to everybody. And I think that might also mean not accepting any new documents, because, I don't want to be in the position where next time we're here, somebody said, oh, well, I submitted this document and you don't know about it. And it's like, at what point do we draw the line and saying, all right, everybody's had the adequate time to get the documents, review them, digest them, and come back, and I'm trying to prevent us from going, back and forth forever.
I agree, yeah.
So if that's so what I'm hearing right now is we're leaning towards the request to continue to the next meeting, so
yes,
the applicant can, we can have the available documents posted. I guess I would make a request that, Sam, if we can gather all of the documents that have come in to date and put a time limit on, it's, the next meeting's the 2nd, this September 2nd. So, any meeting that, any document, correspondence, whatever it might be that comes in after the 26th, we have to set a limit and say, nope, we can't, there's only so much we can review, we're setting it this, and everything will be posted by the 26th, or on the 26th, and everybody will have that time until the next meeting to review it. And then the other reason why we're continuing is to ask TEC if they've had similar projects and see what their response is.
I think that would quell a lot of fear.
And I think in response to what a good point you made about, the concerns over the groundwater, which we all have, I think something to consider is maybe asking them to put a picket line out towards the wetlands, monitoring wells. Run a simple picket line and you quarterly test them, and if you start to spike in it, well, guess what? You are leaching into the...
So I'm not exactly familiar with what your...
Test wells.
Test wells.
Yeah, you put monitoring wells in. Periodically, whatever it is, 3 quarterly, biannually, however, you go dip the well and have the water tested, and you'll see what is in it.
Is that part of your continuing maintenance plan?
Not typically. I don't think we've installed those to date. During normal operations, there are not contaminants coming off of these sites.
Have you been in such a wet area before with one of these installs?
Yeah, definitely.
I guess I'm not concerned about how wet the location is, but this area is contaminated with various things. And how is that going to affect, if we have these ongoing monitoring systems, are we going to put them in a position where, oh, look, they're always dirty. Yeah. They're always,
Well, there's a baseline.
Yeah. At what point do we say, all right, we expect it to be, contaminated, and we're working towards it no longer being contaminated?
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I think a couple responses. One is there is an existing DEP case right now in terms of contamination on this site. There were PFAS found in the groundwater as part of our due diligence, and we're working with the landowner and the state to kind of find out where that source is. No source has been identified yet. It's just PFAS in the groundwater. It's unfortunately quite common in Massachusetts. So there are existing wells on the site, and more than likely the DEP's kind of conditions to close out that case will be to continually monitor those ground wells. We're also working with National Grid to install some wells on their property. So this is all kind of fresh and ongoing. We're working with, like I said, with the DEP on that. In terms of testing, I don't think we have any sort of issue with continually testing those wells. They already will be tested continually as part of the DEP case. But again, during normal operation, there are not contaminants coming off of sites like this. It would only be in the case of a fire that would even be a potential risk. And we've already agreed to testing runoff in basins and fire water and all of that, and responding in accordance with the DEP's policy for spills and reportable conditions. I think it's certainly something we can look at, and maybe the existing wells that we're going to have as part of the DEP's PFAS contamination case would be adequate, but certainly something we can look at for the hearing in September.
Great suggestion, Tom.
All right, so I guess I just want to, push back a little bit on this plan, because you said you haven't done something like this, but you also didn't seem concerned about the feasibility of it. I just don't want to, we're asking to continue for 2 very specific reasons, and now we're introducing a third thing. And how likely is it that we're going to go back and forth, and then, we're going to have questions about these testing wells, and, you'll have to answer at the next meeting. I want to,
Not to interrupt, but I think we'll just ask them for feasibility.
Feasibility.
Is this something you folks would be okay with? And, you know, this is not a really hard question on a project this size.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and like I said, there will be wells, at least for the next 5 or so years as part of the DEP conditions, most likely. Again, we haven't finalized those, but their typical response is leave the wells there, test periodically to make sure it's not getting worse. I think it's certainly something that, especially if those wells are going to be there for a longer period of time, I don't imagine it would be an issue. I think, like you also mentioned, though, if there's not a fire event and the conditions are getting worse, that could be more symptomatic of a larger Tewksbury issue and not tied to this facility. Because like I said, during normal standard operations, there are not contaminants coming off of sites like these.
All right.
But we have to look at the worst case.
All right, so with that being said, I am going to, I'm not going to close the public hearing. I am going to ask for a motion to continue this notice of intent and land disturbance permit, DEP file number 305-1232, to the next meeting on September 2nd, 2026. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. All right, thank you.
We're going to adjourn?
It's pretty quiet. Do we have any admin reports? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.